Let me just say, to my immediate right is Abby Disney, the producer, the instigator, the catalyst for this incredible series. And to Abby's immediate right is Cora Weiss, who is the president for the Hague Appeal for Peace, and who has been a peace activist for more years than you want me to say.
I'm not that old.
You're not that old. Why did you choose to use film and media as a vehicle? And had you always wanted to be a documentary filmmaker? Why film?
Well, the answer to the third question first is no, absolutely not. I'd rather have been shot. I have this big last name, and it's really a pain in my rear. And to go into filmmaking is just begging to be mocked and ridiculed and made fun of. And so I kind of didn't want to go near it. It's a community I grew up around, and I didn't really particularly feel very fond of it. So that was nowhere in my toolbox at the time. But you come from, so okay, these women had trusted me with their story. And here I stand on this earth. You have to look at yourself and say, how am I uniquely placed? Well, I had the eyes and the ears to see this because of all the work I'd been doing for so many years with grassroots communities. So I wasn't just another CNN person who just glossed over them and didn't notice that they mattered. People don't notice them because, it's not because they're bad people, it's just that they are not listening on that wavelength. So I had been trained to pick up on that wavelength, and I saw it. So I had one foot there, but the other foot in my unique place on the planet was, among people who live in the media world, have resources, and I knew that I could use the connections and the relationships I had to make this story be heard, or I suspected that I could. And so it really, you have to ask yourself, first of all, I have a debt. Now that I've heard this story, I have a debt in me. I can't simply just go on and pretend that I don't know it. So what's the most effective way to make it heard? Well, film is amazing. You sit in a dark room and you completely forget who and where you are. That feeling? When you just have no thought to remember that you're this particular person at this moment. You're almost in the screen. It's amazing when you think it's just color and light and sound, but it really does take you to what is very nearly a trance state. And so much of our behavior in our culture has been shaped by people willingly going into that trance-like state and then having their behavior and their expectations formed by the likes of Michael Bay and John Wayne and the rest of it. This is, we have built and exported an incredible aesthetics of violence and war. And it seemed like, why not use these same tools, to create an alternative idea of the way societies change, the way you can solve problems, the way women act and behave when they're under enormous pressure. And it seemed like, it's so funny because the minute I made the decision to make the film, I thought it would be this incredibly difficult thing. And I had an inner producer. Apparently there's a producer gene. There's also a huckster gene. There's a marketing gene. There's all these kinds of genes I didn't know about. And it kicked right in, and I knew exactly how to do the job. I really knew exactly how to do the job. That's partly because I did what my uncle is famous for, which is to hire incredibly talented people and get the hell out of their way and let them do what they're talented at. And that I worked with incredible partners. But there was no way but film. And the other thing about film that's so important is, so much of what we credit and give authority to depends on how it comes, in what package it comes in for us. So if I give you a photograph of Lema Bowie, just as a 4x6 photograph that I take out of my wallet and it's all crumpled, you're going to say, well, look at this African lady. If I put it in a beautiful golden frame and then you're going to say, oh, this must be somebody important. And that's the effect film has. So almost automatically, you assert something as historical, you assert something as authoritative by simply just throwing it up there on a big screen and with good production values and good sound, and you do a really good job of it. And that's exactly how it worked. And so this was a very deliberate attempt to penetrate the way the historical records are authored and made and credited, with an authoritative looking version of a story.
I would like to thank Abby for this extraordinary contribution that she has made to the world and to women. And I think it's extraordinary for at least two reasons, and we can mention more. You heard in the trailer women say we're fed up with war. You heard women say stop violence. And I hope that this series, or even one of the five, each one of the five, will provoke discussion everywhere, in your classroom, at your dinner table, in bed, wherever you are with somebody else who can talk. That it should start a discussion on why war. After all, the world had slavery, colonialism, apartheid. We had women not voting, and we eliminated those. Colonialism, we eliminated those, we abolished them. So and those were institutions supported by laws and taxes and culture and customs and men. Why not war? So that's one reason. And the second reason is that this series shows women as peace builders, not as victims. The victimization of women has become pervasive, and it should be absolutely rejected. Women are problem solvers, and when women get to the table, the situation is going to be different. My thinking has evolved from talking about women to talking about peace women, women who support gender equality and sustainable development and human rights and justice and disarmament, because there's something happening in the developing world, in the developed world, as distinguished from the developing world, and I distinguish between the two. I think there's a Palinization of America happening, and a Palinization of women. The Tea Party is women dominant, and we can't any longer just say, in the developed world. In the developing world, it's different, and I'll explain that very quickly in a second. But in the developed world, we can no longer say just women, women. I used to say women, women everywhere and not enough in power, or no peace, no women, no peace. I used to have a bunch of one-liners about women. But today I'm talking about peace women, about justice women, about women who want to get rid of racism, who want to get rid of poverty, who want to embrace solar power, and so forth. And the reason I distinguish between developed countries and developing is because the countries, all developing, that you have filmed brilliantly, the footage is stunning. The women have experienced, women have experienced oppression, violence, rape, war, poverty, and they have more in common than in conflict. And so in Colombia, in Afghanistan, I would sit at the table with women and invite more women to come. But today, in Washington, in Chicago, in Los Alamos, where you get nuclear women, I would call for women who want peace, women who want an end to violence, an end to war, women who want sustainable development. And that's my biggest frustration, is how to explain that more briefly.
I want you to see yourselves, all of you, as peace builders, because, you know, until the stupid word processor stops underlining the word peace builder when I type it in red, telling me there's no such word, then I haven't achieved success. Peace is a process, it's not an event. Peace is a verb. Peace is something you choose and something you do and something you make every single day. And that means the answer for each and every one of you is going to be different. It might be as simple as making a peaceful home, because you don't live in a peaceful home. I grew up in a not peaceful home. So I understand that it starts in your life in making a world of nonviolence and remaking, if necessary, the next family that you start, which is what I've done. Or it starts with making peace in your neighborhood. Maybe the mothers in charge in Philadelphia who saw Pray the Devil Back to Hell, they looked around and they said, you know, there's a gun shop in Philadelphia and we don't want a gun shop in city limits in Philadelphia. And they picketed and picketed until the gun shop was moved out of Philadelphia. That's a huge victory. That's a huge piece of imagination. Or maybe, you know, you need to go lie down in front of a tank. You know, maybe that's what you need to do. But the first step is for all of us to call ourselves peace builders and to take that job on and understand that it's our day-to-day business and responsibility.